Hi, my name is Kylie Enright and welcome to Kylie's Ask an Expert. The whole reason why I decided to start some short videos was basically to create awareness for small business owners about products and services that are available to us and the benefits that they could bring to our business. So stay tuned and I hope you like what you see.
Okay. And so obviously a lot of people hopefully have business plans and things that they've been working off that sort of maybe not as relevant right now, but is there any way that we could change our business model or plan into accommodating for sort of a more uncertain times?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question, a really good point. And I actually see I'll call it the economic downturn, and it may not have hit us fully yet. It might be on its way. We're not quite sure. I think it can provide us with an opportunity in the way that it actually teaches us to become more efficient with the practices and the systems and the people and the operation of our businesses. And I've learned this through hospitality in my years of experience in hospitality. We learned to operate on skeleton teams, on low, costs to reduce our cost of goods, reduce our labor, reducing our overheads because the sales weren't coming through the door. But what that taught us was where we could open up areas of efficiency and look at efficiencies throughout the business. Maybe we can do more with the less staff. Maybe we can do more with the resources that we have, but order less. I think it's an opportunity for business owners right now to understand how to operate their businesses on a lean model. And for a lot of time, people are running their businesses and they might be really busy and making sure that customers are being looked after, and they don't necessarily pay a lot of attention to increasing or improving the amount of efficiency within their business's operations. And it's not until we're given, like I said, an opportunity like now to go, you have to lean up or else you may not survive. And then you start looking at, creative ways to reduce your expenses, to reduce your cost of goods, to reduce your labor force. Can we do more with less? That's the principle that people are looking at. And I think it gives you opportunities to go, wow, we've, let's just call it reduced our expenses by 25%. But when you scale back up, you're not going to scale your expenses up by 25%. You might scale them back up by 10%.
Yeah, okay. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so in effect, you're actually becoming more efficient because you're forced to in a certain way. I read an email from a guy that I follow in the States, and he said it's so interesting over there. He's based in Canada, but he operates throughout the States and Canada. He said it's so interesting where a business loan used to take 6 to 8 weeks can now be processed in 3 days. He said, look at the inefficiency in that model. And he goes, but why isn't it the norm? Like, why can't we process business loans in 3 days normally? So that's a really good example of using that in your own business and going, right, if we've cleared out all this, let's call it dead wood or dead expense, how do we continue to operate when the market picks up again? And
the profits would be larger, basically.
Exactly. Profits will be massively larger because you're running on less cost to run everything in the first place. So I think running a business model in a lean way, not only an opportunity right now, but it gives you a greater control on what's happening in your business. And then when you scale back up, you remain super lean.
Okay. And would there be any kind of sort of short-term plan or anything that you can sort of start to do to do that kind of model or put in place with that?
Yep. Yeah, sure. So I think it really comes down to whether you can trade or not. And if you can trade right now, it means cash flow is still active. It might have slowed right down, but the cash is still coming through the business. So if you can trade, look at how we can minimize expense as much as possible, how we can minimize labor, particularly that's a large overhead for many businesses, negotiate with people like landlords and see how we can kind of maybe reduce those rental payments or freeze rental payments just to get us through. And one thing that I've been saying to a lot of clients, and I do get a few eyeballs rolling, is how do we maintain the presence of cash? Like, how do we build a cash reserve even in the present time? even if we're putting 10% of what we're making into a bucket and letting that bucket slowly fill up, again, we can use that to pay back down on debt later. We can use it to invest in labor if we need to kick back up again. Like, the presence of cash is important because you can't buy groceries with a mortgage, right? You can only buy groceries with cash. So having cash right now is going to be very important. And it's the businesses that have that capital, that they can tap into. They're the ones that will probably weather the storm better because they've got a fallback option in terms of, if they had to shut the doors, they may be able to literally pay their full-time staff, and that's it for a period of weeks. And then they can turn things back on again, open the doors and continue to trade without too much loss. So they're in a really safe position. On the other side of this, if you have been significantly affected or if you can't trade, and this may not necessarily apply to the pest control industry, you really need to look at what expenses are we paying out that aren't returning us anything right now. Cut them off, freeze them, stall them, do whatever you can to stop paying things out, particularly rent. If your business has been shut down, surely the landlord, and I know that the government are helping in this area, freeze rental payments for a certain period of time. But a big part of what I'd be doing if you can't trade is getting online and getting digital and getting creative about how you can continually operate or continually create connection with your audience without the trade. And that's a very difficult position to be in. There are many people in that position, by the way, but I think it's a matter of, if you can conserve cash at any level, that's what I would be doing over the next kind of 30, 60, 90 days, and just working on how do we survive so that when we're allowed back out of our homes, we can open the door and get started again.
So sort of as a plan B, maybe working on that and going through some planning of scenarios, different scenarios.
Yeah, look, I think contingency planning is very important. I'm not going to touch wood when I say this and say I don't think there's a lockdown coming now. I think the government's probably worked very well in terms of mitigating the spread of what's happening. So lockdown may not be something that we have to consider anymore. A lot of the work we did with our clients probably 2 weeks ago was around lockdown planning, like what happens if we are shut into our homes, what will we have to activate in order to stay alive. I think it's difficult if you've got multiple scenarios. Look at what happens if money continually flows in and what happens if money stops. And I would be really preparing budgets and looking at cash flows there and going, what's my lowest and average spend trading scenario, and what happens if we have to stop trading. Those would be the contingencies that I would look at now.
Yeah, and obviously if you have staff, obviously knowing your figures and knowing when you might have to put someone off or when you might have to cut their work back, etc., knowing those numbers.
Yeah, and to a certain degree, a lot of people probably have done that already because they are kind of looking forward at what may happen. Like I said, we don't know what's going to happen, so it's a matter of stabilizing the operation and working on a lean, efficient model. By all means, it all comes back down to cash flow at the end of the day. So understand what cash flow you're bringing in, understand what that cash flow can afford to pay out, whether it's utilities, bills, labor, whatever it might be, and understand what your bare minimums really are, what your break-even costs are, and where you can operate in that space. I've had clients and they're in the service-based industry, and they were a little bit concerned when this was happening because obviously service-based industries, they need to go to people's homes to complete the service to get paid. Initially that was very concerning because if you cut that off, it's like, well, there goes all cash flow. How are we going to feed our families? But at this stage or at this point in time, service-based industries are still allowed to continue. So, that's okay. I think it really depends on how much cash you have in a reserve, but also looking at those contingency plans to go, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? And how do I act at the same time? Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Chris. I really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully, I know I've learned a lot, and hopefully everyone else has as well. So thank you.
You're very welcome. No, you're very welcome. I wish everyone genuinely the very best with their businesses. I really want to, I guess, hopefully this information is going to be valuable to you. And I think the biggest thing really for everybody in business, and this is small business in general, is just let's work together so that we can survive this, because it will end. There will be, an end to it at some point, and it's just how well you get through this before you can continue to trade or ramp things up at the other end.
Or hopefully come out better.
Or hopefully come out better in some scenarios, yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Cool. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So that's Kylie's Ask an Expert. If there's any topics that you'd like to hear about, then please comment below and I'll do my best to source them out for you. Thanks again for watching Kylie's Ask an Expert.